Hello, everybody. Frank Kenny here. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Chamber Pros Live. We're going to be talking about some issues around data and how important it is to be a data-driven organization and how to implement being a data-driven organization. We have some special guests with us here today. Aaron, could I get you to do a quick self-introduction?
Oh, you bet. Thank you, Frank. And hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Howard. I'm the president of Mass Ingenuity. And I'm here today to share, along with Tom and Chris, some more insights into data and the use of our software product and how to really help everybody move forward into 2021 in a positive manner.
Good stuff. And Chris?
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Chris Barker from Mass Ingenuity. I'm the product manager for our results software. I also helped all of our clients with the training and onboarding and really help them get comfortable with data and how to develop good measures that will help drive their business.
I appreciate you guys being here. And for those of you that are watching, I'd love to know what chamber you're watching this from, what chamber you're with. And are you using data very well at your chambers? We're flooded with data, but are we actually using it to make better business decisions is kind of the question. So just go ahead and put into the comment area what chamber you're with and those other questions. We're expecting another person from your team, Tom, right, Aaron?
Yes, that is correct. And hopefully he's not having technical difficulties.
Okay, well, we'll buzz him in when he gets here. For those of you that are, just tuning in to watch this, I've kind of teased this whole thing with, I've got three really what I consider critical measures chambers need to be measuring, KPIs chambers need to be measuring and acting on today if they want to be a modern, successful chamber, if they want to attract new members in the modern way that we live. There's three things you got to be measuring and using. Before we get too deep into that, though, I want to go ahead and bring Tom on because he's here. Hello, Tom.
Hey there. Good morning, afternoon to everybody.
We have Chris and Aaron do quick little self-introductions. Could you do that too, Tom?
Absolutely. Thank you. And apologies, a little technology issue there joining. So I live right near Portland, Oregon, grew up here. Spent a lot of time with financial services organizations and a lot of different state government as well. My passion's around helping individuals and teams, and the work we've been doing with you all has been right in that sweet spot of trying to help you all grow your business and be right there with you every step of the way. So appreciate you letting us join in on this today.
So Aaron's company and Chris and Tom's company, they're the one that I interviewed a few weeks ago about finally there's a dashboard that we can use in the chamber industry that turns all this data that we have into something meaningful, and it turns it into graphics rather than just spreadsheets. Aaron, maybe you can share, before I jump into these three things, I want to give people kind of a high level view of, not just what it is, but how we're going to implement, this, using data, being a data-driven chamber. And this concept of a dashboard, I think, really needs to be unpacked. So would you mind doing that again?
I'd be delighted to. Thank you for asking. Yeah, the whole concept of data is an odd one because we use the word a lot, and yet when all of us try to say, so what, sometimes we really have a question in our mind. We can't answer it. There's a couple easy ways to look at it, though. I always like to think of dashboards as the way in which data becomes meaningful. Let's use an automobile for a second, car. And maybe reflect back to when cars had mostly pretty simple dials to boot, although it works in today's highly, instrumented car. And just imagine for a moment that you had no speedometer and you were going through an area that was pretty heavily guarded in terms of traffic tickets. It would be very difficult to know if you're actually at the speed limit, below or above. If you were too far below, of course, you'd get feedback from the other users with honking. But nevertheless, the real question becomes, what speed am I at? Or what if I didn't have a gas gauge? How much fuel do I have? How long can I go? These really basic questions are no different than the questions we face in business. Speaking for myself, running a company is about having just the right amount of data to be useful, not about having a whole bunch, and being able to see it easily. So that dashboard on a car is a really good analogy to running a business. Now, we can also take a look at it at something we've all been following because it's kind of fun, which is the SpaceX launches. We all know that those are generally autonomous, a bunch of robots running. But imagine if you were in that Dragon capsule, the last four folks that went, and you didn't have those screens to look at. It'd be kind of freaky because you really wouldn't know what's happening. You wouldn't know what the autonomous robot was doing trying to dock you, but they had a very excellent view. And the pictures that we all saw were simple views so they could just see enough data to know that everything was okay. Well, that's really what it's all about. And so hopefully today, what we can convey is that while there are select measures, as you pointed out, that are really important, ultimately, it comes down to having a very easy, simple way to see them every day, everywhere, by everybody who should.
Good stuff. For those chamber pros that are watching, I'd love to know again what chamber you're with, where you're watching this from, and do you have a dashboard that you can look at every day to kind of see, what's your retention rate, what's your membership sales or your membership at, how much money you got in the bank, and then can you then share that with your team members so they know, like the things they're responsible for? Do they know where they're at? And can you show that to your board of directors in a very kind of easy to understand, one pager or something graphical way, so where the board can go, oh, we're on track, or hey, we're not on track, or oh my God, we're way off track. Do you have this means? Because big companies have had this for a long time. They've had these dashboards, but smaller organizations like chambers have been, we basically have been having to wing it. And a few months ago, Aaron approached me and said, hey, my company that helps big organizations like, what is it, state prisons and social security offices, right, Aaron? I mean, you're used to working with large clients. Is that right?
Indeed. We work with large agencies in government. We work with large companies, insurance companies, et cetera. And we've learned a great deal from them. I mean, it's been fun to solve their problems. But what's really exciting is being able to bring it to all businesses so that everybody can benefit from the learnings.
Yeah. So Aaron approached me and said, hey, you're in the chamber industry and you got this audience of chamber professionals. How about we bring a dashboard to your clientele, and then if they like it, maybe they'll show it to their members, because that's who Aaron's really trying to reach here, is millions of small businesses that also should have a dashboard. Your members should have dashboards just like the chamber should. So I said, I'd be glad to do that because I teach the data class for Institute. I'm one of the faculty members for the data class at Institute. And it's been like, there's no dashboard for us. Well, there is now. All right. And Chris and Tom, if you guys want to jump in at any point, just add your 2 cents. That's actually very helpful. So I think we'll jump into this. And I see that some of the chambers are chiming in here. Tupelo, Mississippi, very good. Eastern Lake County Chamber of Commerce, Ohio. This chamber said, I was just thinking I need something like this, so that's perfect. Fantastic. So again, let me know where you're watching from. Venice, Florida. Pinckneyville, Illinois. We've been to Pinckneyville. We stayed there overnight in the RV. Let's see. All right, little segue there, aside. All right, let me share my 3 things that I think every chamber needs to be measuring. And then Aaron and Chris and Tom, maybe you can talk about how results software, this dashboard, would help chambers actually do this. Because I've been preaching measure these things for 5 years, but there's so much to measure. And it's just, I think we're finally to the place where if they can just look at this data every day, or whenever they sit down at their computer and go, oh, we're making progress on these things, it'll give them peace of mind and they'll know they're making progress here. So here's my my digital marketing passion that if I could just get chambers to do, it's 3 things. Now, the first one is in social media. I don't want you necessarily to measure the amount of reach you're getting, how many eyeballs you're getting, because you're on Facebook with your Facebook page, you have your own Facebook profile, you have your Facebook group, you have LinkedIn, you have Twitter, you have Instagram, and you might have a few other things, YouTube. You're reaching a lot of people in your communities. And I think measuring that on a kind of like a daily rolling basis it'd be nice, but it's not absolutely critical. We know you are reaching a huge audience in your community, probably bigger than any of your members, of your local members. But anyway, so you got this huge audience, and an audience is nice, but an audience doesn't pay the bills. Audience doesn't necessarily mean you're successful. You are reaching people, but it's kind of like it feels good, but what does it mean for your bank account? You can't pay your bills with an audience. So what do you do instead? Okay, this is where you need three things that you're measuring on a daily or consistent basis. One is how many members from that audience gets to the chamber's website. How many people that you're reaching through all the social media posting and things you're doing actually come to your chamber's website? If you look at your Google Analytics, you can look at your visitors. Do you know how many visitors you've had to your chamber's website in the last month? And if you want to put that in the comment thread, that'd be very helpful, actually, because a lot of people in the chamber business, they don't know. They might think, oh, we had 1 million hits. Well, that's not visitors. That's just data being served up. If you have a page on your website with 10 pictures, that's 10 hits. It's really a fluff number. It doesn't mean anything. I need to know how many unique human individuals have been to your chamber's website in the last month. You need to measure that, because if you're building that huge audience, but they never get to your chamber's website, that's a problem. I mean, you're missing out on a massive opportunity. So let me know in the comments if you're measuring monthly visitors through Google Analytics or some other service, probably Google Analytics, to your chamber's website. Now, once you get them to your website, they just might join. You have a join now page, they might just join. So that's all well and good. But most people don't. The conversion rate for people just coming to a website is extremely low. 1 or 2% is kind of standard. But you need to convert them in some kind of way so that you can stay in touch with them. And that's where you collect an email address. Once you get somebody's email address that they've subscribed to your newsletter, they subscribe to get more information from your chamber, all of a sudden, now you have a lead, a real human being lead with a unique email address that trusts you enough to give you their email address. Now you got something there. So are you measuring at your Chamber of Commerce how many leads you're generating on a monthly basis from visitors to your website? Now, you might have just a subscribe box on your website, subscribe to our newsletter. And that used to be 10 years ago just fine, but that's not good enough anymore. You need lead magnets. You need offers of free content that's gated to where if they want the cheat sheet, if they want the report, if they want the list, if they want the calendar, whatever it happens to be, all you do is say, yes, you can have this, but I need an email address in exchange. It's called a lead magnet. And so your chamber absolutely should have a lead magnet or a series of, I got 18 or 19 lead magnets on my website. If anybody wants to go to my website, you'll find in my free resources, 18 or 19 freebies so that I can turn people that come to my website from strangers into leads, into contacts that I can follow up with, and I can nurture the relationship, and I can make offers and things of that nature. So that's the second thing to measure. Is first is website traffic on a monthly basis, and then how many of those people convert into leads. And then finally, the third thing to measure is how many of those leads do I convert into new members. And if you're getting email addresses, you will be converting those people into new members. In the digital marketing world, they say that your email list is like gold. It's like money in the bank, because these people trust you enough to give you their email address. They're consuming your content. They're getting value. They are feeling like, wow, this organization is trying to help me be successful. They want to help me make money. They want to help me save money. They want to connect me with other people in the community. They want to help me with government affairs and all this kind of stuff. A certain percentage of those people, when asked, will join. Generally not straight just coming to your website, like 1 or 2%, maybe. More will join through your email marketing. So measure your website traffic, how many email addresses you're collecting, and how many of those people on your email list or come into your website are converting into paid members. If you do this, you will find that every one of those numbers improve for your chamber, because what we measure generally improves. Aaron and Chris and Tom, any thoughts on what I've just ranted on about there for 10 minutes or something?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, what I just heard you describe is a funnel of the measures coming in, which really gives some insights to where I would imagine the next best unit of time for any chamber professional out there could be pointed at, and almost kind of see how those things correlate. And if I'm working on website visits and trying to get them to convert, I may not be too worried about trying to get more people coming to the site right then. I'm really trying to land them. And it kind of lets you spend your next time of problem solving, critical thinking, or just trying new things to different parts of that pipeline. So kind of identify them as separate pieces allows you to work on them individually, but to also see them as a whole gives you the insights on how the whole system's doing. So those three seem to resonate really well for me.
Yeah, and what I would say is that over time, you're going to see what works and what doesn't work. So the benefit of tracking it and having it in an easy to access tool, right? Over time, you're going to look at, over the course of the year, we did 3 or 4 different campaigns. Which ones generated results and which ones fell flat? What are the learnings so that we can get better? And so when you look at it from that historical view, you're getting stronger as a team, is also a great learning, is what I find. And what I would also say is that the measures you described, Frank, are very straightforward, very basic. Like not getting scared about, well, what to measure. Do I need a data background? Did I need to go to school? You know what? You know what to measure. It's pretty straightforward, and having confidence in yourself. That was one of my takeaways from what you described. I'm not a marketing person, but I understood what you described, Frank.
That's good. I try to keep it as simple as I can. Aaron, would results, with the dashboard, is it built to kind of help you do something like that, where it's maybe 3 things that are related to each other?
Yes, indeed it is. One of the most important things about it is not creating a bunch of clutter. So if there's 3 things to measure, you can look at just exactly those 3 things. And you can do it anytime, anywhere, including on your phone. In other words, you don't have to work too hard to get to those 3 things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I would also say too is that you start with 3, and if they don't work, you adjust, right? You're not, because it's a very easy to use tool. It's not like something where, even to learn, I think like some of my clients, we have financial clients, right, that get data every day. We have clients like prison guards, we have social workers that are just all relationship based. And so the use of data and Excel like scares the heck out of them. And so then it's like they understand that data is important, but kind of leaning into it because they're so nervous about it. Having a tool that, just like anything, like using your iPhone, right? Click, you hit a couple buttons and your metric is set up. It doesn't work, you adjust. And it's easy to set up new ones. And if it doesn't work, no harm, no foul, because it only took you 2 minutes to set up.
I love it. And I was wondering, for those chambers that are watching this, if you have any specific questions, because we're going to do an open Q&A here. Before we get into that, though, I just kind of want to go, Chris, you've been working with chambers now because, Aaron, your company, you want to help the chambers start using data, be data-driven. You're doing this incredible special that we're going to talk about this at the end on what you're doing for the chambers. But you're really making an effort to help the chambers. And Chris, you've trained now a dozen chambers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You kind of go through where they're stumbling, where the roadblocks are, what you're discovering about their thinking process.
Yeah, I would say, a good portion of the chambers, right, you've had to cut staff, and so your resources are down, right? So finding the time, right? Getting, how do you take a step back, understanding that data is important. When I've done the training, they're like, oh, this is really easy. Like I could set up my 3 measures in 5 minutes. So then it took away that fear. The other thing that I would say is so much of the chamber's way of doing business needs to change, right? It was a very event driven so budgets are cut, right? So trying to get a little creative on how they can do it, and using the metrics, right, to be like, oh, this is working, this isn't working, I think has been another where they're excited, right, to really engage the board and have a data conversation. So that's a big plus that I'm seeing so far in my conversations. Yeah. Tom, you joined one of my calls.
Let me know what other questions you have. Tom, what about for you? You've worked with chambers, but also lots of other organizations. Any stories or anything helpful to share?
Yes, thank you. For the chamber specifically, at the training I was in, near the end, one of the professionals mentioned that it's going to make their job easier like today, because they said they were organizing and trying to keep track of some projects that they were doing to report back to the board on. They also had some of their key measures. I think this was a mid-sized chamber. So they had a few people that were in the mode of trying to manage the routine work. And they said this will actually help us bring together a handful of things that we're doing in very different ways into one tool. And then they could even share it, just give the chamber board members access so they could look at the dashboard whenever they want, however often it's updated. So rather than it being a board meeting event moment that everybody's preparing for, they're just reviewing the data that everybody could have been looking at all along. So that was one specific to chambers. And one that I've been picking up on, especially in this virtual leading of a business and teams that we've all been experiencing, just in the last couple of weeks, this team was really identifying that, every week they have about 4 weeks of work to do. And they're just overwhelmed. I mean, really, sometimes folks getting emotional about it. They're like, we are just overwhelmed. And when I heard you say, Frank, here's 3 measures you can start with that might just be the right milestones to be aimed at, it created a simplicity and ability to focus on 3 things that are proven to drive, business growth. So I think that just that idea of trying to go more simple to start, yet powerful, helps us to really focus on the most important things and spend our time there, and maybe not focusing on everything. There's so many. I open my inbox every day, and I could probably spend most of my day working on the less important things. They're almost easier and a little more fun. And if I say, nope, every day I need to work on those 3 measures, and get each of them moving in the right direction, some of the other stuff that may be sort of important, but not as impactful might kind of slip off my plate in a good way. So I think just the clarity is the other thing I keep hearing from clients. It helps in times like these.
Aaron, what have you seen with companies where they start measuring data? It's a process. You got to decide what's important to measure. What a great process to go through, I would think. Even before you get to the data, just deciding what to measure is valuable. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a really important point. Chris and Tom and others in the company do that day in and day out with clients, help them decide what it is that they're measuring, and actually help them decide why they're even doing it, which really comes down to how their business runs. So it's a really deep and frankly exciting conversation. But when all said and done, and especially as Tom mentioned, this crazy world we live in, when all said and done, the biggest challenge is just measure the most important things and don't measure the rest. I had a real life example happen the other day. We're getting to the end of the year. I had to communicate with my board about, end of the year projections for how it's going to look. So they got a bunch of financials. That's great. And these people used to read this stuff. But guess what? They called me up and said, great, thanks. Can you just give us, and they said 3 to 5 measures that you think are important for us to know about the future, what 2021 will look like. And it forced me to actually just give them for our own company literally 5 most important measures. And it wasn't a full financial deck and spreadsheet. It was literally 5 measures. And I even put them in results and printed it out because it was a nice way to share it with them. So we all live in that world, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. So for those of you watching, again, if you have any questions around what to measure, how to measure it, or how you how you make better business decisions once you're doing these things. Because really, I mean, to me, that's what it comes down to. Is it just makes it to where you're not guessing. You have data to make your life easier. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, what I would say is that really taking the time up front to understand what are our goals, like what do we need to focus on in the next 6 months, and then understanding what are the activities we're going to do to try to achieve those goals, right? And then setting them up as those critical 3 to 5 measures. What our software also does that hasn't been mentioned so far is that the data point, the value, is only one piece of the narrative that your board is interested in. Our software also allows you as the kind of metric owner to reflect on, a comment, like what's the 1 or 2 sentence behind that data point. So if we achieved, if we were successful on increasing number of new members this month, what did we do differently that we would want to communicate the board? And so our tool allows to not only capture the value, but the narrative behind the activities, so that when you're having a conversation with the board, it's really the complete story. Collecting data, that's only one piece of it. Using data to get insights and information is the other part of the equation that you're going to start developing disciplines and skills on.
Interesting. Tom, were you going to add 2 cents on that one? It looked like you had something to say.
Well, what I was thinking about is that most of the people that use the software are not people that their day job is the dashboard manager or the data team. I mean, these are people in positions that are running operations and just need some insights to help guide them. And the second part is that by having those key insights, usually the problem solving can be focused on something more close to the root problem or the root opportunity versus maybe dealing with all the distractions and the things that may not actually get at the root of the problem. So that's what comes to mind as Chris began to share that.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of a story. When I was really digging into going beyond social media to doing digital marketing, where the sale actually happens, the digital marketing. I heard a story where a company hired another company to generate tons of traffic to their website. It's called traffic. When you drive people from social media to your website, that's called traffic. So they hired a company to drive the traffic to the website. And lo and behold, they didn't get any additional sales. And so the companies had a meeting. And, one of the things that came out in the meeting is even before they were getting all that traffic, none of it was converting. The sales copy was bad. The offer was bad. Whatever it happens to be, the sales process wasn't working. So driving all that traffic to a bad sales process was getting them no results. So when you start measuring the data, you can see where the bottlenecks are, or where the problem is. Am I right about that, Tom and Chris and Aaron?
Yeah, you touched right on it. And it's usually the person that is in the business that has the expertise on how their business is run. So as chamber pros, there's probably nobody more expert than your unique organization. So to have the data presented to you, you're going to see things just jump off the page, where if you hand it to somebody else, they'd be like, I'm not sure what we should do here. You'll probably just be ready to do the next best thing to help drive that outcome. So,
yeah. What I would also say too is that our tool, you want to be taking if you got lost on your dashboard, so you're getting to your outcome, you want to get back on course sooner than later, right? You don't want to make a big detour. So you don't want to wait till that board meeting and try to understand, what did we do this quarter? What if it's only every 6 months you meet, or however often? So being able to measure and check easily on the data and the activities. Also, our software allows email communication. So having conversation as a team with your board or within your staff, right? Checking in frequently, right, when you can make a difference, right? So what we would say in our business, a lagging indicator versus a leading indicator, right? You want to jump in there and adjust, if you're starting to go off course sooner than later. And being able to do that where you can all get in, look at the data, talk about the data, make adjustments, you're going to be much more successful as a chamber.
Yeah, I can see where if you're a CEO with a team and you can look at a dashboard and see where you're at on things, rather than having to talk to each individual person or just try to guess, where we are with stuff. We're too intuition based, I think, in small business. And it'd be nice to have a dashboard that, the data, you can't let the data run your life, I don't think. You still have to use your brain, your business sense, and things of that nature. But once you have, and especially your software, Aaron, maybe you can talk about this and how it turns it into, rather than just raw numbers, it turns it into red and green and yellow and graphs. Makes it a lot easier to decipher what the data is trying to tell you, right?
Absolutely. Most of us are comfortable with certain things that we experience every day. If we're driving down the street and the stoplight turns red, what do? Generally speaking, stop, hopefully. In any case, we're comfortable with things like that. We're comfortable with back in the day when we used to go to sports events, looking at the scorecard of the scoreboard and looking at the score. We're comfortable with certain metaphors. Our software does that. It presents things such that you can comfortably say, well, how am I doing to a red, green, yellow type of coding? And of course, you get to set that the way it needs to be set, so it's not arbitrary or anything like that. So it's very specific. And what we've tried to do throughout is ask ourselves a simple question. What do regular people want to see? Not data scientists, not Excel geeks. These are all good people, don't get me wrong. But what does everybody else need to see? And then we built the software to do that. And we by the way, we listen every day. Customers are constantly giving us great ideas. And that stuff is what goes into the development, because what better thing to do than just like an app on your iPhone that just gets better every year? It's because we listen to what everyday people are doing with the darn product.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Well, let's start wrapping this up a little bit. If people have additional questions, go ahead and post them and we'll try to get to them. I know that when we did this about a month ago or so, you have a wave of chamber people that took advantage of your special rate. And I think I'll just go ahead and share it now. The results is they want to work with the chambers. They want to impress the chambers. They want the chambers to be happy, with the idea that if the chamber's happy, they're going to tell their members that they should check out this software. All right. So what Aaron is doing is he's doing 90% off their regular rate. So, I mean, you're only paying 10%. Aaron, can you share maybe that screen grab you showed me earlier where there's a discount code and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, just a moment. Let me do that. And
I'll probably have to do something on my end also, so I'll be watching this. And then Chris, well, go ahead, Aaron. Now that you have it up, go ahead and share kind of what you're doing for the chambers.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you, by the way, Frank, for teeing it up. Here's what we're doing. We have two products, Team and Pro. One is for up to 5 users, the other up to 10 users. And as Frank said, we're making an offer at a 90% discount. It's very simple to get to. You click on the URL that you see there, which just takes it to a pricing page. You enter you click on Buy Now. There's a place in the shopping cart to put Frank90, the coupon code, and then the purchase is completed. So it's a fairly simple process. We also, though, want to make sure that you have great experience. So we've scheduled additional training sessions as well. And we've done this because, as Frank said, we want to be able to help you all. And ultimately, we want to be able to help the folks that you serve in your membership, but it all starts with you. So that's why we put this together.
And Chris, you're teaching a couple more classes here. I know you've already taught a couple waves of chambers.
Yeah. So the next 2 Fridays, so anyone that purchases in the next 2 weeks can attend a training on, I'm offering it on the 11th and the 18th. And I schedule it for an hour, but it usually takes about 45 minutes. And when you purchase with the coupon, Frank has a preload of suggested measures with some sample data. So we kind of walk you through how to take the sample data and how to modify it and get you up and running. in that 45 minutes. And then there's an online help so that you can also watch other training videos, send a note to me and Tom, ask for help. And then anyone that cannot attend on the 11th or 18th can just schedule, send me an email and schedule individual time as well.
And you're not charging extra, right? I mean,
No.
you get 90% discount, and that's grandfathered forever. And then the training with Chris is no additional?
Yeah, that's correct. Normally with our Team Pro, we our subscribers rely on our learning center and its self kind of taught training videos. But with the chambers, we want to really help make you successful. So we're offering you more of the enterprise experience on training to get you started. And it's actually quite fun. Tom and I've had just a blast getting to know the chambers in all different parts of the United States and learning about your businesses and how you adjusted and survived COVID and the impacts. So
it's been an interesting year. Aaron, how long are you going to continue to offer this? I know you can't keep giving it away at 90% off. So how long did chambers have to take advantage of this?
Yes, through the end of December 31st, this offer will remain valid.
Okay, that's great. All right, everybody. I'm not seeing any questions coming in, at least on my interface. I'm broadcasting this to Facebook and the Facebook page, the group, YouTube. So I'm sure there's questions out there that I'm not seeing, but I'll make sure these get answered. And Tom and Chris, any final kind of thoughts on this?
Just to reinforce some of the things you said, Frank, starting with a few, starting simple. This is meant to be for anybody in the mode of trying to manage their business. So we want to help, so don't be shy. As you purchase and want to jump into the training or just have a quick question, we're here even for the early morning East Coasters out there. Chris and I are there for you.
Yeah. And what I would say is that once you get started, you realize that it's easier than you thought, and that it really kind of changes the conversations that you're having with the board. And you know what, you guys all do great work, and the data will tell your story, and you should be proud of it and how you're managing the struggles. So let's get started.
And then being able to present it to a board of directors on a consistent basis, where they get used to seeing, here's the numbers that are important to the chamber. So I think it's really important that you're on the same page with your board of directors on what's the key indicators or what's our financial health. Because if you think in your mind it's one thing and they're thinking it's something else, and I almost guarantee you it is, because the boards don't run the chambers, they don't know very much about the chambers. So, all they might care about is membership dues or membership numbers. That might be the number one thing in their mind. And for you, it might be how much money's coming in from the membership. I mean, that's a big difference there between just having a huge membership and actually making big money from the membership. But if you're measuring different things, it's not very healthy. And so the whole process here of setting up the dashboard and the way it just makes your life easier. And it's good to hear that it's not as complicated as it sounds, because it's scary for anybody.
Yeah.
Aaron, you want to wrap this up? Any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you, Frank. And obviously, we really appreciate all of the attendees. What I would like to say is that our goal is ultimately to be able to help companies just like us. We look like many of the member companies that are out there in various cities. And we feel very passionate about, just as we had to help ourselves, of course, especially through this last year, we want to actually help those members. So our goal is to find a way through this program to be able to ultimately do that. And we suspect that that'll be somewhat customized for each region or state or whatever. So we're totally prepared to do that. But in the meantime, the right way to get started, take advantage of the offer we have here. It's a great way to get started. And I'm sure people who have spent the time with Chris and Tom know we're very hands-on. We don't expect you to be self-serve. We want to help you do that. The last thing I would say is that for those of you out there who remember our history, meaning when Frank and I met, I actually was able to connect Frank with your brother 2 days ago. Hadn't seen him in a long time, and made a purchase of one of the bear carvings to send to one of our good friends. It's winging its way to Manitoba, to Winnipeg specifically, as of today. And it was really fun to catch up and actually be in the same environment, at least building, that we first met, and it was quite a delight. So anyway.
Aaron and I know. All right, you guys take care. Thanks so much. Happy holidays. Be well. Be safe.
Thanks,
All
Ray.
that stuff. We'll see you in the new year.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.